Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to paint this fall foliage landscape of Shenandoah National Park. Without further ado, let's get painting. In today's tutorial, I'll be using quite a few colors. We've got sap green, perylene green, yellow ochre, orange, red, yellow, burnt umber, VanDyke Brown, Payne's gray, and black. I'll also be using a little bit of art masking fluid by Winsor Newton for our road. And then I've got a size 2, size 6, size 16 round Princeton brush, and the paper I've taped down to paint with today is a size 5 by 7 inches. The first thing that I'm going to do is do a little sketch, and I'm just going to use some yellow ochre watered down for my sketch color. And I'm just going to lightly sketch some of the road details before we add some masking fluid shortly thereafter. So just below halfway, I am going to do a dash line. That's about 1 inch wide. And from there, I'm going to do kind of a rainbow curve all the way towards the last, let's say, 1/2 inch, just a 1/2 inch gap towards the bottom right corner. Then from here, I'm going to do a second one, kind of similar and parallel, but it slightly widens towards the base. So we've got almost like a partial crescent moon shape here. So this is going to be a ledge off the side of the road. Then from here, we've got a little bit of ground cover. So I'm just going to mimic that same kind of motion, kind of parallel, just like so. Then from here, I'm going to do a curved line, more so in the opposite direction, pointed towards the left corner. And I'm going to start by doing a subtle kind of C curve and then elongate it about 1/2 inch from the corner of the page. Next up, I want to switch gears to my brush. That is more of my crafty grade brush. And I'm going to dip it in my masking fluid. And I just gave the bottle a good shake. And I want to do not two lines, sorry. One solid line, starting from the middle point of our road, right up top. And from there, I am just going to do kind of a subtle rainbow curve. And I want the curve to slightly widen as it gets closer to the base bottom of the paper. And then from here, alongside the edges, the right and left edge, just on the inside part of where the orange is, right up against the orange, I'm going to do a thin line. And it's going to be thinner towards the top of the road. And this basically is going to be our white painted line along the road there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And it's slightly thinner towards the top and gradually will widen towards the base. While the masking fluid sets to dry, I'm going to take some water with my size 16 brush, and I'm just going to add some water towards, I would would say the top couple of inches, and then just all the way across left and right to the tape. So not too much. Most of our foliage will take up a good chunk of the sky. Just the first couple inches or so are fine with the water. And then I'm just gonna tap my brush into a little bit of Payne's Grey and add this in. And I really just want a very subtle tone of Payne's Grey, very light. Again, because our foliage will be overlapping, so I don't want any blue to be showing too much amongst the foliage. So this will just give just the essence of a very muted, slightly foggy kind of a sky. Okay, now I'll just let this fully dry. The masking fluid takes, I want to say, roughly a half hour to 45 minutes to dry. And when we come back, we will get to start our foliage. Now that the sky is dry, I want to fill everywhere, essentially, not everywhere, sorry. I want to put some water down, a nice good water wash, all along this orange sketch line. And then from here, I want to put some water up in the sky as well. And I'm not covering the whole sky, obviously, but I'm just allowing some overlap coming into the sky with the water. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the right side, except I'm gonna paint the water alongside this orange ledge here, this orange sketch. And I'm also gonna fill some water a couple inches above this line here, this orange line that we sketched out. And then I'm going to bring some water kind of draping into the sky slightly. Okay, so from here, I have some opening with our sky kind of peeping through, but now I want to start to lay out all of our fall colors. So I'm going to start with yellow. And I just want to start to blot in some yellow into our wet water here, starting with this left area. Then I'm going to add a little bit more yellow slightly downward on the inside of the left-hand side of the road. From here, I want to add some yellow over towards the right. And I'm kind of just blotting it just to get a little bit of organic uneven texture here. And then I will add just a little bit over towards the bottom right ledge, just above there alongside the edge there. And then just a hint of it in the top center wet area. We will add some more details to kind of add a little bit more structure to the leaves up towards the edges of the trees, but we'll do that second. Next, I'm going to add some yellow ochre, and I'm going to start by layering some of that a little bit into the yellow on the left side here. I'm going to add a little bit at the bottom of the yellow here. I'm going to add some just above the yellow and some just below, really playing with the variety of color with this landscape. And then I'm going to add just a little bit below some of the yellow, just like that. And next, I want to get some, words are hard right now. Okay. I want to get some orange. I think I was just really excited to add some pops of orange. And I will add some towards the left corner, just slightly overlapping. and then also some just above this bright yellow. And then I'm going to add some towards the bottom right ledge here, just above that sketch line. And just kind of overlap it slightly and tap it in. And then just a little bit above our road. Next, I'm gonna add some red. And I wanna add a few pops of red, kind of overlapping towards the left here. I'm gonna add some slightly just midway. I love seeing all the colors bloom, so pretty. Next, I'm gonna add a little bit towards the right here, just above the start of our road. I'm just kind of lightly blotting it and tapping it. And then I'll do some towards the right corner, leaving some gaps of that yellow popping through, and a little bit slightly overlapping on some of the orange here. Alrighty, next I want to add some VanDyke Brown, just to give a little bit of an earthier tone. And I'm going to start by adding some VanDyke Brown just below this red that we just applied. You want a little bit of some earthiness mixed in here. Next, I'm going to add some just below this orange that we applied previously. And just a little bit below here as well. I'm going to add a little bit in this section towards the left side. And I'm going to overlap some in this kind of blank area. And I want to overlap a touch of the brown onto the red just to make the red a little bit earthier. Kind of taking some of the cherry tones out just slightly. Still want some nice vibrant pops of that red, but just toning it down just a little bit. Alrighty. And then next up, I want to add a little bit of Perelyne green. So I'm going to water down some Perelyne green, and I just want to tap that in just a few spots. So I'm going to add a little bit of a touch of the Perelyne green just towards the top right of our road. I'm just going to paint alongside the edge of that sketch. Then I'm going to add a little bit of Perelyne green towards the left here, but I'm going to add some, just as some foliage towards the left side of the road, kind of in a swooping rainbow curve that slightly gets thicker and denser towards the left side of the page. Next, I'm going to add just a touch of Perelyne green mixed in with this brown, just kind of blotting it a little bit and overlapping. And then I'll add just a touch of it right in here, just add a little bit of contrast, and just a little bit of it up towards the left as well. right, just so that yellow doesn't get too lost with the Perelyne green down here, I'm just gonna reintroduce just a little bit of yellow. And then from here, I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow towards the right. And then next I'm going to take a little bit of sap green and add some sap green towards the left here, all the way up against the sketch line of where our masking fluid is, which by now should be dry. So I'm just adding a little bit of that vibrant green. And it really contrasts well with like the reds and the oranges. And next, I'm gonna add some of the sap green all along on the inside of this crescent moon shape here. At this point, I'm just gonna let all of our fall foliage set and dry, and when we come back, we can start adding more details. Next, I'm going to use my size 16 brush and grab some black, and I'm just gonna do some black on our road here, and you can paint over the masking fluid without worrying about it too much because those areas are now blocked off that we need. And I'm gonna go ahead and leave the top there slightly blank because that's gonna be the start of our ledge. All right, and I'm also going to add some black over here, but I'm just gonna water down the black in this white area. Just a subtle kind of charcoal toned black. And then layered on there, I'm going to add some VanDyke Brown. And then just a touch more black. All right, I am going to now start some more details with her trees. So first I want to add some yellow ochre using my size 6 brush. And I just want to add a little bit of texture into some of the brighter yellow areas using this nice rich yellow ochre just to help add a little bit more detail and shading. And then along the edges here, I'm going to blot some textured yellow ochre with some white gaps in between where the sky can kind of pop through. And I'll do the same thing on this other side. And then towards the left, I'm just going to add a little bit more texture alongside the edges. And then I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre in this white area, not white, sorry, some of this yellow area, just to add a little bit more texture. And then just a little bit here as well. Alrighty, and then next I am going to take some burnt umber, and I want to use some burnt umber to texturize some of the red areas. So I'm just going to blot in using the tip of my size 6 brush, just a little bit more earth tone texturizing. Next up, I'm going to take just some plain regular red and just texturize the top of this tree here with a little bit more brush work, just to kind of rough out that edge a little bit more. And then I'm also going to add just a little bit more of that bright red vivid texture on the tops of this red section, a little bit here as well. And then I'm going to take some watered down Perelyne green and just texturize some of the green areas with some of this deep hunter's green. And I'm just going to take a little bit more burnt umber on this brown tree over here, just kind of roughing up those edges here. And then revisiting the Perelyne green, I'm going to add some towards this right ledge, just on the inside here. Then from here, I want to add some water just to allow that to kind of bleed out and have a smoother transition. then I'm going to add some Perelyne green over towards the left here as well, a little bit more texture. So I'm just blotting my size 6 brush to get that. And then on the outside of this white line, I'm just adding a touch of the Perelyne green just for a little bit more definition here. Next, I do want to texturize this ledge, so I'm going to take some black, and all I want to do is just add a little bit of loose texture. I'm kind of zigzagging slightly back and forth, and what this is representing is the shade of our leaves and foliage with the trees, so that way, you know, there is some light popping through, so you could see that there's some areas that don't have some shadow, but there is a lot of the shadow from the branches and the foliage, so that's what's giving this texture here. And then slightly layered on top of the Perelyne green, I'm going to add just a little bit of black just to bring more contrast to this area here. I'm just redefining that ledge that's quite thin off in the distance there with a little bit of black. Then next, I'm going to take a little bit of watered down Perelyne green and just texturize on top of the sap green just a little bit. Don't want it to be too overpowering, but I do want a little bit of texture there. And next up, we get to start working on our tree trunks and our branches. So for that, we're going to use our size 6 brush and a combination of our size 2 brush, and we're going to use VanDyke Brown. So I'm just going to give my VanDyke Brown a good amount of water because we're going to be using quite a good amount of it. And from here, I want to add just a few tree trunks. So I'm going to start by doing a chunky base for a tree trunk here. Then I'm going to do a kind of a slightly angled one over towards the right. That's a little bit bigger. And with each one of my trunks, I'm going to kind of blot out the bottom a little bit, just to show that there's some greenery kind of covering and concealing the base of that. Next up, I'll do a small one off in the distance in between these two, just like so. And then I want a couple smaller ones here. I'm just going to blot out the bottom. And then I want a small angled one towards the right that's almost conjoined with the previous one. And then I'll just do a couple really thin ones off in the distance. Just like so. And then from here, I want to show that some of these trunks are continuing. So I'm just going to leave a gap and have a couple areas where you can see the trunks of these trees kind of popping through. So I'm just layering and texturizing some of those just to show through some of the foliage. And then from here, I want to add a large branch kind of coming over from the left. So I'm just doing an angled, crooked, jagged line, just like so. Off of that, I'll have another branch stemming off of it, just like that. Kind of mimicking some Y letter shapes at different angles. Then I'll do another little branch coming off of this branch, kind of hooking upward. And then above here, I'd like to do another large branch. And this one, I basically just mimic the letter Y off at an awkward angle, and then from there I just do an extension of other branches and shapes. Next, I'm going to go over to this side, and I'm going to start by having a tree over here, kind of cut off by that ledge. So I'm going to do a simple little trunk that's slightly not fully in view, so I do a couple dashes to mimic that, and then from here I'm going to do an angled branch towards the left. And then another one towards the right that kind of gets cut off. I'm just going to thicken the base trunk real quick, just like that. And from here, I'm going to do just a couple little branches stemming upward. And then I want to do another tree trunk towards the bottom right area here. From there, I'm going to just do a couple blots of the dark brown amongst the greenery here, and then do a branch over towards the left. Then I'll do one more towards the bottom right, kind of cut off there. And then next up, I want to switch gears and start using my size 2 brush. And from here, I'm just going to add a few more branches kind of tucked in. So I'm going to start by adding a couple thin branches here. This is really mainly a trunk off in the distance. Then I want to add maybe a thin branch coming off from this right side. And from here, I'm just adding smaller branches coming off of the main branch at different odd angles. Do another branch maybe overlapping, slightly cut off here. All right, and then next up, I want to add just a few almost like V letter shapes, kind of in the distance, mimicking a few branches. I'm just going to add a few of them here and there. I'm going to add a few just in this yellow area as well. Then I'll add just a couple in this foliage, just above the start of the road. Alrighty, and now we can finally use an eraser, or you can scratch it off with your hand, but I'm just gonna go ahead and grab an eraser to get our masking fluid off. So all I do is rub this down, and then slowly, just from that friction, you can start to peel the masking fluid off. It's kind of oddly satisfying. Alrighty, and now what I want to do is fill in the left and right white lines that we have with a little bit of gray, and just to help soften the color in here, especially with all the shaded trees, these areas would not be like perfectly white, but there would definitely be a highlight from the painted white line in the street. So I'm just doing a simple gray wash. And then from here, I'm going to paint this center line yellow. And then layered on top of that, I'm going to add some yellow ochre just to help deepen it and just add a little bit of earthiness to that yellow. And I will just let this yellow line dry, and when we come back, we'll add some finishing details to our road. All right, so I'm gonna get some black to add a center line starting from the top and working my way to the bottom, going nice and slow and slowly increasing the width. I just want that center line. As a big water droplet just kind of spilled over. Whoops. Well, I will let that settle before I kind of repaint that section, but not a big deal. And I'm gonna do a similar thing over towards the outer left side here of this white painted line, and just do a charcoal gray color right here. I kind of want to thin out the top that's slightly farther away in the distance. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this right road here. Just going to add a charcoal line, kind of thinning out the top of that marking with the white line. Here we go. And then on the inside, I'm just going to kind of thin out some of it more. All right, and next, I just want to redefine this ledge up top. So I'm just going to kind of outline the bottom just about an inch across and just outline the top slightly. Okay, so next I'm just going to redefine this center line again. From here, I'm going to use black to texturize some shadows over our road. So I'm just going to use my size 2 brush to take a good amount of black, and I'm just adding this kind of loose texture and shadow over the road, which is just mimicking above some of our branches and foliage, just causing this kind of cast shadow. And it can go over the yellow line slightly and the white line a bit. And even into some of the greenery. Thank you so much for joining me for today's watercolor Shenandoah National Park tutorial. I hope this tutorial really just brings you into the fall season, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any further watercolor tutorials.